Sweden is planning to bring forward measures to curb gang crime that's risen to unprecedented levels. A new report shows young people in particular being drawn into a cycle of violence, often being recruited by other teenagers.
Once a symbol of open doors and liberal values, Sweden is now taking some of the most extreme measures to curb its immigration crisis. What led to this dramatic shift, and how is it changing the entire landscape of Europe? Stay with us to uncover the truth behind Sweden's immigration crisis that Europe can no longer afford to ignore.
För vi ska jaga gängen och vi ska besegra gängen. Vi ska ställa dem inför domstol. Är de svenska medborgare ska de låsas in på mycket långa fängelsestraff. Är de utländska medborgare ska de dessutom utvisas.
Welcome to our channel, where we break down the most pressing global issues. Today, we're focusing on a topic that has not only reshaped Sweden, but is also sending shockwaves across Europe. From embracing over 160,000 asylum seekers at the height of the 2015 migrant crisis, to now introducing some of the strictest controls on immigration, the country has gone through a radical transformation. In this video, we'll dissect the reasons behind these changes, how Sweden's social and economic fabric has been altered, and what other European nations are learning from Sweden's experience. Get ready for an in-depth look at the shocking reality of Sweden's immigration crisis. Sweden was once heralded as the humanitarian capital of Europe. Known for its liberal policies and open-door approach, the country welcomed tens of thousands of asylum seekers, believing that it was their global responsibility to protect those fleeing war and persecution.
At the end of a long journey, new arrivals in Sweden from Syria. This is a migrant reception centre where fingerprints are taken and asylum claims processed. Numbers have increased dramatically since Sweden announced last month that Syrians seeking asylum would be given permanent right of residence.
Signature.
No other EU country offers that. We're just looking for somewhere safe, Khaled says, and the only safe place is Sweden.
In 2015, Sweden took in over 160,000 asylum seekers, the highest per capita in Europe. At first, this stance bolstered Sweden's image as a compassionate nation. But what looked like a victory for humanitarianism would soon strain Sweden's infrastructure and test its social cohesion. But the cost of compassion was higher than anyone anticipated. How did Sweden's open-door policy push its systems to the breaking point? What started as a noble gesture would soon expose the limits of Sweden's capacity, leading to consequences no one could have predicted. Sweden's welcoming attitude came with unexpected consequences. The influx of migrants overwhelmed essential services, from housing to healthcare and education. Public schools struggled to accommodate new students, hospitals faced increasing demands, and housing became a critical issue as thousands were placed in temporary shelters like gymnasiums and churches. The country's welfare system, already stretched thin, buckled under the pressure, leading to longer wait times, overcrowded facilities, and a growing sense of frustration among both citizens and migrants alike. The sheer volume of asylum seekers was something Sweden had never encountered before, and it became clear that the nation's infrastructure could no longer support this level of migration. As the strain on Sweden's systems intensified, the cracks began to show in another critical area: public safety. While Sweden grappled with the strain on public services, a darker reality was beginning to surface, one that would shift the immigration debate entirely. Sweden's cities, once seen as bastions of peace and security, experienced a troubling surge in crime, particularly in urban areas like Stockholm, Gothenburg and Malmö. Gang violence and gun-related incidents reached unprecedented levels, with many conflicts linked to immigrant communities. According to Swedish police reports, gun violence and fatal shootings skyrocketed, with 2021 witnessing over 340 reported shootings. The increase in crime, often associated with territorial disputes among gangs, highlighted the country's struggle to integrate its immigrant population effectively. Public sentiment began to shift as concerns about national security and the failure of integration policies grew louder. With rising crime rates and public discontent, the government had no choice but to pivot. Enter Sweden's drastic policy changes. Sweden had long held a reputation for humanitarianism, but as the country faced growing social unrest, the political landscape was about to undergo a seismic shift. In 2016, Sweden made a dramatic policy reversal, signaling a new chapter in its immigration strategy. Border checks were reintroduced, and laws were tightened to stem the flow of asylum seekers. Special reception centres were set up to centralise and control where asylum seekers would be processed, and for those whose applications were rejected, return centres were created to ensure efficient deportation. Climbing or damaging the border fence became a criminal offence, and strict deportation laws saw thousands of individuals return to their countries of origin. These policies were a clear departure from Sweden's previous humanitarian stance and showed the world that Sweden was now taking control of its borders in ways few would have imagined. But Sweden wasn't just implementing border controls, it was also making waves across the political spectrum. What did this mean for Sweden's future? As Sweden clamped down on immigration, political upheaval followed, giving rise to new voices and reshaping the country's identity. The political ramifications of Sweden's immigration crisis were significant. The Sweden Democrats, a right-wing nationalist party that had long been on the political fringe, found its platform gaining traction. The party, which had previously been associated with extremist groups, rebranded itself under the leadership of Jimmie Åkesson and capitalized on growing discontent over immigration. By 2022, the Sweden Democrats had secured 20% of the vote, becoming the second largest political party in the country.
The result of the Swedish election is on a knife edge. The biggest winner of election night is Jimmie Åkesson, the leader of the anti-immigration Sweden Democrats Party. With partial votes in, it looks like they'll be the second largest party in parliament with more than 20% of votes. That's a far cry away from the 5.7% they won 12 years ago.
Their rise reflected a broader European trend where populist and nationalist parties gained influence by focusing on immigration control, national security, and the preservation of cultural identity. In Sweden, immigration became the defining political issue, one that was impossible to ignore. But the Sweden Democrats weren't just gaining ground domestically. Their policies and rhetoric were sparking international debate. As the Sweden Democrats surged in popularity, their success started to resonate across Europe, leading to fierce debates within the EU. Sweden's shift towards stricter immigration controls sent ripples across Europe. Other nations, including Germany, France, and Italy, took note of Sweden's success in curbing migration and began to consider similar approaches. The rise of right-wing populism, seen not only in Sweden but across the continent, raised questions about the future of the European Union's immigration policies. Countries struggling with their own migrant crises watched closely, weighing the balance between humanitarian obligations and national security. As the debate intensified, it became clear that Sweden's experience would shape the future of European immigration policy for years to come. Sweden's influence on immigration policy is undeniable, but not everyone is on board with their approach. What kind of backlash has Sweden faced? While Sweden's policies have been effective in reducing asylum numbers, they've also sparked criticism, both from within the EU and around the world. Despite its effectiveness, Sweden's strict immigration policies have faced sharp criticism from liberal EU nations and human rights groups. Many argue that these policies undermine the humanitarian values that the European Union was built upon. Critics highlight the harsh conditions in deportation centres and argue that Sweden's approach creates a climate of fear and uncertainty for those still seeking asylum. Additionally, concerns over Sweden's integration challenges persist, with some questioning whether these policies will deepen social divisions and perpetuate cycles of inequality. As Europe grapples with its own migrant challenges, Sweden's model remains controversial, with advocates calling it a necessary measure and critics deeming it too extreme. Despite the criticism, Sweden's policies have brought some success. But what does the future hold for Sweden's immigration landscape? As Sweden continues to navigate its immigration challenges, the future of its policies and their impact on Europe remains uncertain. Sweden's approach to immigration has evolved rapidly in the past decade, and the effects of these changes are still unfolding. As the country continues to enforce strict border controls and tighten asylum laws, questions about integration, cultural identity, and economic stability remain at the forefront of the national debate. Other European nations are watching closely, with some poised to follow in Sweden's footsteps, while others push back against the tightening of immigration laws. As the broader European Union faces mounting pressure to reform its immigration policies, Sweden's experience will undoubtedly play a pivotal role in shaping the future of migration across the continent. Sweden's transformation from an open, welcoming country to one that enforces some of the toughest immigration laws in Europe is a story that mirrors the challenges many nations are facing today. What do you think? Is Sweden's approach the right path forward? Or should there be a better balance between humanitarian values and national security? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.